What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Martian and Ozzy podcast. I am the Martian, joined by my co-host, as always, Ozzy. This week, we're going to be talking about the UFC 276 card going down this weekend, headlined by two title fights: Israel Adesanya versus Garry-Cannonier, and the trilogy between Alexander Volkanovski and Max Holloway. Great fight card, top to bottom. Excited for this pay-per-view, Ozzy. It's good to be back as always. How we doing this week, my man?
I'm fucking pumped. Love this fight card. Probably my favorite, looking at it like just top to bottom stacked. Obviously last week was a great card as well. I felt main event was amazing. That's the kind of fights that I love. And Gamrot came through with a great win, to put on his resume. But I just thought top to bottom it was awesome, and I think this one is great. And I just think July as a whole, the matchmakers, and everyone there at the UFC done a good job, and I think we should have great fight cards. For you got the London event at the end of the month. You got the Long Island event. I just think and even next week with Fiziev and RDA. So July should be a very very good month, and I'm looking at a lot of future lines as well. So I'm definitely excited. Q2 was a down quarter for me, and glad to put that in a rear view, and we're going to the second half of the year, starting with this card.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't realize that. We're done with that quarter. I lost on the last card, 3.8 units, dropped to a negative on the year on official track bets. I mean, thank God for fucking live betting, or else this year would be really bad. If you're not already, join the spaces. Pretty much every card we're going live on spaces on Twitter, talking about live bets and whatnot. And yeah, I mean, credit where credit is due. UFC's been putting on some good fights lately. The matchmaking's been solid. Back to back, really good fight night, 5 round main events. This card's looking good. The next couple fight night main events are looking good. I'm excited to be going to the Long Island card in a couple weeks. So, things are looking up. And this pay per view is really solid. Just before we go on, Ozzy, quick recap of last week. It was a good week for you.
Yeah, very good. Swept the board. Three straight picks: Parisian, Morozov, and Batista. 3.73 up. And then I ended up having. I mean, I had a bunch of other plays. I kind of wanted to be like, all right, like I gotta get a winning week in the books here. But obviously, Gamrot was great there at the end. But I mean, I think all the reads last week were very very on point, and definitely think they've been good overall. So hopefully we keep it rolling, and stay focused, and I think the profitability will increase, and we'll get right back to having a solid year by the time it all wraps up.
Sounds good. Let's talk some fights. So the first fight on the card, women's 135 division, Jessica Rose Clark taking on Julia Stoliarenko. JRC getting steamed here as the favorite, minus 180, plus 155 on Stoliarenko. So, I mean, this line opened, briefly, plus 175 for Clark. Then it got to Pick'em for like a couple days, like, weeks back. People were talking about this fight at Pick'em, and then it's gotten all the way steamed to minus 180. I mean, just steady action on Rose Clark, man. I'm off of Rose Clark. I mean, if you guys listen to the last fight, we had a good read on the fight. Ozzy obviously nailed it, back in Edgar in that spot. I said I'm passing on Rose Clark. I said I won on her fights recently, but I'm done with her because she looked in that Edwards fight to be, just like on her way out. I still found a way to lose money on that fight, going the decision versus Edgar. But I mean, Rose Clark, man, her decision making is not there. Apparently, she asked somebody, in the MMA Twitter space to give her a game plan for the fight. They said avoid grappling, avoid clinching. That's the only way Edgar wins this fight. Use your striking to win the fight. And within 30 seconds, she's the one initiating the grappling, getting judo throw, getting arm bar, just no resistance to that arm bar. And Jessica Rose Clark is in a bit of a head case stage of her career right now. She did get that knee surgery after the Alpar fight too. Very relevant. Tore her ACL, and you saw in that Jocelyn Edwards fight, this woman is just not really confident in her striking anymore. She used to be a predominantly a striker. Now that confidence in her mobility is just gone, and she loves to grapple. Now she's fighting Stoliarenko, who is a woman whose fights typically involve a lot of grappling. She gets taken down a lot, but she attacks with arm bars off her back, and she's just a scrappy veteran. You saw her lose round one to Alexis Davis, come back and outstrike Alexis Davis to a round two winning round there. So I just feel like Stoliarenko can make it scrappy. She can maybe attack some arm bars. I think she could possibly win the striking at this point in their career. And she's just a zombie lady. And another thing is, Rose Clark doesn't finish anybody. She had 13, 14 minutes of top time on Edwards, didn't finish, was never close to finishing. And I mean, she did finish there out bar technically. But I just think that she's not getting Stoliarenko out of there, and it's going to be a tough 15 minutes. And as we've seen lately, these women's underdogs are just the spots to be on when they're going to decision. These rounds are toss ups. Demopoulos last week's a great example. So Stoliarenko is the side here. I probably talked about that fight for too long, but I'll pass it over to you, Ozzy.
Well, I'm gonna probably do the same here. So, I mean, I just feel looking at this fight, knowing both of these women, that I mean, this line is insane. I feel because Jessica Rose Clark, like, obviously she's got, double D tits. She's kind of hot, has an
Kind of.
Australian accent, right? Kind of hot. I mean, it's different people have different tastes. So I just will put the kind. She's hot. For me, she's hot. And aesthetically, even when she is, in the cage and on her feet, right, her striking, it looks better than Stoliarenko's aesthetically, right? But I think this is the trap that people fall into with women's MMA because they think like similar to you, right? Or not to single out, but the GDP fight, right? GDP way cleaner striking. Maria Oliveira, it looks awful. It looks not, technically correct. But at the end of the day, it's something that could be put into a winning formula in women's MMA. And I think that people like overrate, like, oh, Stoliarenko is sloppy. Jessica Rose Clark, her punches are, cleaner. Her angles are cleaner. But for me, from looking at her, it does not look like this girl really wants to get into scraps, get into fights. The fight against Edwards, yeah, she found that okay, this girl cannot defend the takedowns or the groundwork or whatever it is. But even when they were at range, like it just felt to me like all she wanted to do was grapple because she didn't want to be at the, on the outside, at all. And all the punches that she threw to me had no commitment on them and no intent on them. And even with the takedowns, like yeah, the takedowns were solid, but she doesn't land any strikes while mounted, while in top guard. She or her total strikes in that fight where she had dominant ground control for multiple minutes, she landed like 18 strikes over the whole course of the fight. And the same thing happens against Egger, where you mentioned, she went to the clinch. And she said, oh, it was a bad decision. No, it was not a lapse of judgment because not only does she grab the clinch, right, initiate it, but they stay in the clinch for like 2 minutes. Nothing's happening, nothing, nada. And then they separate and she goes right back to the clinch and gets thrown, right. She got thrown 2 times, right? So it was only one time. She got thrown 2 times. And I think the main thing is that this girl does not want to be at range. She does not want to be in a gritty fight. And if she's gonna go for takedowns and go into the realm where Stoliarenko is definitely superior, like this girl, I don't know if it's a Aja Gracie black belt, but she's a black belt. She's from Lithuania. But I mean, the girls, I think her groundwork, her guard game is not bad. Like obviously, I don't want her, being stuck like let's say Melissa Gatto, similar, story with her where she was just going for the arm bars. But I feel this is very similar to that Karolina Kovacevic versus Jessica Penne fight, where these girls are gonna fucking grapple, and Jessica Rose Clark does not make good decisions, and that is one of the most important things in grappling, especially with a submission hunter like Stoliarenko. So I cannot see why people would be very confident in Rose Clark and betting her to this extent. Like I got a few guys I know that they bet at 110, 115, 120, 125. Okay, I guess because the meta and her approach is more is more likely to win decisions than Stoliarenko. But I just don't think that matters, man, because like she doesn't score. Like if you just think about like scoring criteria, like she's not passing Stoliarenko's guard like she was Edwards. So Stoliarenko might just be able to hit her from the bottom and win the fight. Don't you agree? Like, is that not possible?
Yeah.
So
She'll land, but,
go
these
ahead.
judges, they might not recognize it.
Maybe, dude, but it's like very, very apparent that this girl's not putting in work when she's on top. So like if it's like somewhat close and this girl's throwing up I mean, she almost armbarred Alexis Davis. Alexis Davis is a legend of women's MMA in comparison to Jessica Rose Clark. And I mean, I don't know. I don't understand this. I'm gonna be on Stoliarenko probably for more than just a unit. And yeah, I mean, if Rose Clark is gonna beat me, she's gonna win the decision or turn back the clock and be way more aggressive and show her pre ACL injury self. Cool. But I'll take the girl who's gonna get the fight that she wants or could force the kind of fight that the other girl does not want. So give me Stoliarenko, official play, official bet, official pick, official lean.
Sounds very good, and, the past 3 women's MMA dogs, all won, we're on a heater here. These women's MMA dogs are decided to be on. That's some
I,
hard-hitting
I can't
analysis.
believe people will look at this and not want to bet Stoliarenko. I don't
Yeah.
understand.
That was some hard hitting analysis from both of us there. I mean, low level fight, but we dove deep into that one. Next fight, also women's fight. Let's get them all out of the way on these first 2 fights. I really like this fucking formula the UFC's got going on. We got Jessica Evil Eye taking on Macy Barber. Macy Barber, as always, huge favorite, -282. Jessica Eye +242. Another fight with a ton of steam. I mean, just a week or two ago, this was under 2-1 for Jessica Eye. She's plus 180, plus 170 just about a week or two ago, and now she's all the way up to 242. So, what are you thinking about this big favorite in women's MMA here, Ozzy?
Yeah. I was ignoring this fight mostly for the week. Just because it just wasn't it isn't an interesting fight to me overall. But I mean, this price is pretty crazy just in the fact that you we're in the big cage here, right? Obviously, we both took an L against Macy Barber when she fought Montana. But in that fight, it was fought mostly in the clinch, right? Because Montana, right? That's where not that that's where she wanted to be, but she wanted to be grappling overall. And Macy did a really good job of being in the clinch, being busy, throwing the elbows, being just very aggressive, with her striking in there. But Jessica Eye is more in the mold of a girl that she's fine with like a gritty fight, right? You saw her face in her last fight against Maya. It was crimson, right? A massive cut on her head. And just thinking about this fight as Macy Barber, her decision line is minus money, right? But her money line is 282. I'm just kind of thinking that Jessica I could potentially make this fight closer than people anticipate. Now, I don't think I's fought many southpaws, which is a little interesting to me. Coming in here against Macy, but just Macy's range striking, it just I've never been a fan of it, and I don't know if she's actually going to look to proactively grapple other than grabbing the clinch. And I mean, if your path to victory is dirty boxing in the clinch, I just don't really like you as a favorite overall, especially in fight against like a girl like Jess Guy who has a lot of experience in three round fights, obviously going to decision. Very often she's not like, she doesn't need takedowns to win. And I think she probably, I mean, I'm not saying she's for sure a superior range striker, but the range striking has to be kind of close. This is women's MMA overall here. So I mean, I gotta lean towards the Jessica I price here and probably, put in a small bet on her because being 30% against Missy Barber, a girl who, she looks like her range striking is not there. She doesn't really mix it up all that well from the outside. And like I said, I don't know if she's really gonna shoot takedowns here. But I could look horrible. But honestly, even in her fights that she's lost, like her last few fights, she hasn't really looked horrible. Like I know you probably felt that she won the Jennifer Maya fight, and I remember plenty of people betting her against Joanne Calderwood. I was not one of those people, but I mean, and that was a range kickboxing fight. So I gotta lean with Jessica I, and I think she potentially could get the win here, but I'm not gonna, I don't think that she will. But I mean, the 242 price is, I mean, how much further can it go? Like, I wouldn't bet Macy Barber minus 240. So I think the value here, probably a significant amount, is on Just Guy.
Yeah, you had a lot of good points there. I mean, we did definitely, lose and predict, Barbara's last fight incorrectly. But This is a whole different matchup. I mean, Jessica Eye, you said she might. I'm saying she definitely does have the better distance striking than Barber. I mean, Barber's distance striking consists of circling around the cage. She does a ton of circling, and then she every now and then she settles her feet. She throws like a sloppy 1-2, and when the fight is just at distance, she's just uncomfortable striking. Even the times when we've seen her have success striking, it's coming forward and like winging big, looping punches and finishing Aldrich and Robertson and Hannah Cyphers and stuff like that. But since Roxanne really took her soul back in the day, her striking just hasn't been the same. She was getting outstruck by Miranda Maverick on the feet. Alexa Grasso obviously lit her up, and Barbara's just not comfortable at distance. But what I don't love is she doesn't also hang out at distance. She never like stays in the same place. She's always moving. She is a decent athlete and can risk mitigate her way into winning these fights, which is, very unfortunate from a viewing standpoint. And, as you saw in that De La Rosa fight, all she does is clinch. She just wants to clinch and put you against the cage, land a few knees. I mean, she clearly did beat Montana in all those rounds by clinching. I just think that Eye's a lot tougher of a veteran to get in those clinch positions, and I think that she'll be, possibly be able to reverse some of these positions. And I just trust Eye to make it scrappy, man. She's been in the UFC for what, 7, 8 years. She's been a ton of decisions against good fighters. Chukagian, Viviana Arajo. Two women she has wins over. So I don't think this is anything that new to her in Barber here. And Eye's last fight against um, Jennifer Maia just last year, I thought she looked good in that fight. I mean, she looked like a veteran striker in that fight, and had a good case for winning it. So, we're always going to be Macy Barber haters on this podcast, but even at this line, I just think it's nuts to put I here at 242. So. Gotta have a small bet on her. Enough of that one. Moving on to a middleweight division fight, we have Uriah Hall taking on Andre Muniz. Muniz is the favorite, minus 330. Hall plus 270. So another story. This has been the kind of the story. A lot of these fights, the line movement on this line has been just nuts. I mean, 2 weeks ago the line is sitting at minus 240, and now we're sitting at minus 330. And it just keeps going. I mean, just last Wednesday. So we're recording this Wednesday night. Last Wednesday night it was minus 260. Now minus 330. So the people are just betting Muniz like there's no tomorrow. I mean, throwing him in parlays, everything like that. His sub line is minus 110. Obviously, people are thinking he takes this guy down and submits him. And that's what Muniz has been doing to his past few opponents. But think about it, guys. The last time he's had a difficult fight was the Arroyo fight, which was an ugly decision where neither guy looked good in the later rounds. He has submitted three people in a row, but let's not completely, ignore the fact that if he doesn't get this round one submission, are we sure he's going to look good in these later rounds? Because there really isn't much evidence to suggest so. And I think against a seasoned veteran like Uriah Hall, a guy who's been in a lot of similar matchups to this, most notably the Antonio Carlos Jr. matchup, another very similar Brazilian Jiu Jitsu black belt, high level submission grappler who also has some decent wrestling to go along with it. He got control, got his back taken, got taken down in that fight, and still gutted out a win because he knows how to, defend back takes. He doesn't, go for anything crazy. He stays tight, he defends, and then when he's on the feet, this guy, he hits hard. He knows how to make the most of his striking exchanges when the fight is on the feet. So Muniz has a clean double leg early. We saw him hit some takedowns. He looks good early. I think he probably will take Hall down early and he will get some dominant positions. Might even submit him in the first round here. But if this fight gets out of round one, I think Hall's got a really good chance at, showing Muniz a little bit of a vet lesson here, taking him late into this fight and maybe even making it all the way to a decision. The fight going the decision is plus 350 here, man. That's a crazy line. I mean, even if Muniz obviously has a great chance to submit him, but I mean Hall I think could outstrike him to a decision or some sort. I think the fight going the decision is big value here, and hopefully Muniz doesn't just run through him and submit him in round one. I mean obviously he's a legitimate dangerous submission grappler. He's been doing some sick stuff on the mat lately, but I don't think he's just going to be continuing to get these easy round one submissions. Eventually, he's got to run into some adversity, and plus 270 for Hall is a good enough price to pay to see some of that.
Yeah, I definitely agree with the overall
What do we?
sentiment. Muniz is on a great win streak here. I think that's what 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 in a row. With a number of submissions, on that record. There are a bunch of finishes. And the guy's a killer, man. But I mean, the dude's also been knocked out 4 times, right? He's got 4 L's, 4 knockouts, and I know Uriah Hall knows how to knock people out. Um, if you look at the Bartos Fabinski, fight, like, Fabinski takes him down, right? And then, he gets armbarred. I mean, I love guys that armbar people, and I love girls too. Stoliarenko, my girl before. But I mean, it's so tough for me to come here and rationalize the reason that Muniz's line is this crazy because Uriah Hall. I mean, he's a little mentally weak, all these kind of things. But I mean, he has to be going into this fight with some confidence that he's going to be able to take this hype from this guy. If he's been training any of his takedown defense at all, like, Hall's pretty good at, he'll throw the straight front kicks up the middle. He's got a long jab, right? He's got like a close to 80-inch reach. I mean, Muniz has a, long reach as well. But I mean, his last 3 fights, like he's fought Strickland, Weidman, and Anderson Silva, man. And he just has like great power. And I think, like you said, if Muniz, starts slowing down, man, like Uriah Hall's gonna be on the attack, at some point because Muniz is the kind of guy, like, I don't think he's got cardio like Hidalgo showed, right? Like an improvement. I don't see an improvement like that coming because of, his fights have just been ending so early. And, I think that if he starts slowing down at all, we're gonna start seeing guard pulls, right? Like, going for a single leg pulling guard. And I think Uriah Hall potentially could end up finding the kill switch. But Muniz, he's been showing improved wrestling, great timing, but I think I think maybe the age factor has people leaning towards fading Hall. Also, his stats probably look uglier after that Sean Strickland, fight where he just got volumed up. But the guy went 5 rounds there, and I mean, I gotta play Uriah Hall here. Like he has a pretty decent floor with like just being able to knock dudes out, and the fact that if the fight gets extended, you're kind of thinking that either Hall has neutralized the grappling, or like Muniz is just like he just completely unsuccessful. Like maybe he just stops trying and he ends up getting outstruck. So this is a very interesting fight. I'm looking forward to it playing out, but I'm leaning towards like just like the earlier ones, like putting the bet on Hall. I might make a crazy round robin of a bunch of underdogs. It could be square, but I mean, this is just way too much line movement in Andre Muniz's favor. Like Uriah Hall's a way bigger underdog than even Eric Anders was. So I don't get it, but we'll see. But I'm taking Hall.
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest point here is just like the most relevant matchup we have is Antonio Carlos Jr. And we saw Hall survive back takes for like 7-8 minutes in that fight. We saw him win that decision. So last thing I'll say is Hall knockout 2 plus 1200, Hall knockout 3 plus 2000. So some good juicy props there. Moving on, next fight in the middleweight division as well. We have Brad Tavares taking on Dricus Du Plessis here, and the odds have Du Plessis as the favorite at minus 144. Tavares plus 124. Another fight with some significant line movement. Pick'em odds, maybe even Du Plessis as the underdog 2 weeks ago, now all the way down as the favorite to minus 145. Ozzy, I'll let you start this one off. I know you're looking forward to this one.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of DDP, Dricus Du Plessis. I think this guy's solid, and I think in his last fight, or I know in his last fight, he showed a little bit more of his game where he got the takedown on Officer Giles and then decided to turn him off later in the fight. But I think, I mean, he's just unorthodox. Like it's similar to the Stoliarenko thing. Like, I mean, the guy does not look clean, on the feet. Right, he's kind of a little clunky, right? He's very bulky. But I mean, he strings, strikes together pretty well. He finds the chin very often, right? It's not an accident that he he found the chin of Marcus Perez somehow, and I was on Marcus Perez in that fight. But it's not an accident found his chin. It's not an accident he found Trevin Giles' chin, and it wasn't an accident when he found Roberto Stolcik's chin. So I mean, the guy goes boom boom. I heard potentially a little rumor about maybe Brad Tavares getting hurt a little bit in training. I don't know. Could coincide with why Chris Curtis is talking about, being on the card. I don't know. But overall, I mean, I'm not gonna say I understand the line movement because I haven't spoke to anyone that has said that they really like Drickus. Like more people like the steadiness, well-rounded game of Brad Tavares. Right, he's gonna come out there. He's in the jab. He's in a low kick. He'll land his left hook every now and then. And he's got great cardio as well. And he's more of a meat and potatoes fighter, while Drickus is kind of like he's more chaotic. He likes when the fight is chaotic, when you don't really know if he's gonna go for a takedown or if he's gonna strike with you or go to the clinch or all these things. Brad, I'm pretty sure wants to fight this fight at range. Doesn't really want to mix it up in the grappling, but he's a solid grappler. Overall, Brad is a solid fighter, but he's 34 years old. He's got a lot of miles on him, right? He had a bunch of injuries here in the past, but I'm not going to argue if anyone that says, "Hey, man, Brad Tavares 45%, I'm getting a plus 125." Like that has to be a bet for me. I understand it personally. I like Drickus. I'm picking Drickus, to win this fight. I don't know how it's going to go. I don't know how he's going to win it. Right? He's a very, very spontaneous, guy, right? The fight could end at any moment with him. I'm confident in saying, right? The KO line's at plus 200 here. I think for a reason, take the hint. But I'm gonna pick him. I'm not gonna bet him. I've got like a tiny, tiny bet on him, like at even money. Not adding anything though here. I'm gonna just sit back, enjoy it. Hopefully, there's a live bet opportunity here. The over here is at 2.5. Kind of interesting to me. I think I actually like the fight to be inside the distance, which is basically the same thing. It's almost it's minus 120, minus 108 on FanDuel. I kind of like that because Brad's shown that he's sitting down on his shots a little bit more. I think he wants to make a statement as well, right? He could potentially get a top 15 ranking. And this guy doesn't have time to sit around and wait. So I think I mean, the funny thing is, Brad, his last two wins, Omari and ACJ, they're fighting for $1 million in PFL, and he's got to fight fucking Drickus du Plessis on the prelims. So I think he's got something to prove, right? It's fucking hilarious, dude. But I think he's got something to prove. So I might have a little stab on the fight doesn't go the distance.
Yeah, so I like Brad in this matchup. Druskus obviously does have some pretty fight changing power. The guys, I would say his striking is on the uglier side, but it's effective. I mean, you really can't argue too much about the technique. I mean, if it's effective and he's hurting dudes and putting guys to sleep, I mean, that's, what really matters at the end of the day. I think though, Duplessis is past, his wins in the UFC, Perez and Giles, kind of known for being like dumb, opponents, right? I mean, those guys have a lot of moments where like they've been winning fights and they lose in pathetic fashion. I mean, they're just kind of known for being, mid-tier dumb guys. While Tavares is like a steady like 15 ranked guy for a while now. I mean, he's been like the 15 ranked middleweight for like 5 years straight, honestly. His UFC record 14-4, 12-3 in decisions. So I mean, the guy has a wealth of experience, and I mean, to me, he's a skill fighter everywhere. I mean, he knows how to strike really well. I like his jab and his leg kick on the feet. He's a really solid defensive grappler. I mean, you saw the ACJ fight recently. He stuffed every one of his takedowns and just been a career tough guy to take down and hold down. And then his past two wins, they're aging well. I mean, like Ozzy was just mentioning, Omari and ACJ having success over there in PFL. They're both at 205 now. They both moved up, not having to cut weight. But I mean, I think Tavares' past two wins are much more impressive than Duplessis' past two wins, comparing them. And then, this matchup, I see, I see them striking for the majority of times. I think Duplessis might look in a wrestle here, but I don't think he'll have much success. Maybe he'll get like a big slam takedown at times, but I don't think he's going to keep Brad down. And then the striking, I just see it being really close. I see Brad as the more technical guy who can possibly build in the fight better with that leg kick, maybe limiting the movement of Duplessis. But I'm also not ignoring the Duplessis' ability to steal these rounds. I mean, the guy is the more powerful guy, what I was just mentioning, a big takedown. So if it's a close round, it's either guy's round the last minute. I mean, I'm going to be nervous as a guy picking Tavares because I think at any moment Duplessis can, string together a big combo or try to go for a takedown, and he can steal that round back. So, I'll be picking Brad here, and then I'm a little conflicted on whether to bet him before the fight or look to live bet. I could see DDP's best round being his round one, and if he can survive that, the fight should be good. But a bet that goes against my pick is the decision only market here on DraftKings. They have Duplessis decision only at plus 150. So the most likely outcome, according to the odds, are Duplessis KO. In that situation, you get your money back. And then, like I was just mentioning, if this fight is not going to be minus 200 for Tavares if it gets to the decision. He's always in close decisions. So I feel like they're discrediting Duplessis' chance to win a decision here. I don't think he's ever won by decision, right, Ozzy? So they're kind of seeing that and writing him off. But I don't know. I mean, I'm not writing this off being his first decision win if possible. Is that true, Ozzy, or did I make that up?
Trick is, yeah, I mean the guy's a finisher. I don't think he's got a single win by decision.
Yeah. But he has round three, and I don't think his cardio is particularly bad either. I mean,
Nah, this guy's in
but
shape
yeah,
too.
good fight. I mean, first four fights, I'm leaning towards the
These
dog
guys are
being the
kind of
value
similar
side.
to me, in my opinion. I don't know. I like, but do you like the fight inside the distance as well?
No,
No,
no, I don't.
you
I
don't.
feel like if you, no, I feel like I'm leaning more towards GTD than that.
No.
Um, but first 4 fights, I mean, the lot of line movement that I mentioned, I'm thinking that the line movement is wrong in all 4 of them. So, obviously, maybe I'm the crazy conspiracy one, or maybe the market knows something that I don't. Um, but next fight, welterweight division, Gabe Green taking on Ian Gary. Uh, Fun fight here. We have Gary favorite minus 171, Green plus 146. So another fight that I see being striking. I mean, if anybody's mixing in a takedown here, it will be Ian Gary. He did wrestle a bit on Cage Warriors, but hasn't been going to it as much since he got to the UFC. But Green knows how to escape bottom. He knows how to, escape. He kind of gives a little volatile positions at times trying to get up, but I think the guy is, a solid grappler. And I don't see, I mean, Gary is a good bit bigger than him. I think he's 5 inches taller than him. But Green just strikes me as like a scrambly guy who's going to be hard to hold down. So I don't see the grappling being an easy path for Gary, and then the striking, I see it being close. I mean, Ian Gary's debut against the southpaw Jordan Williams really struggled with the southpaw boxing of Williams early on there, and Gabe Green is a southpaw who likes to pressure. He knows how to kick the legs, hard leg kicks. He knows how to dig to the body a little bit, and he pressures you. He has good boxing, and I think he can cut off the cage a little bit better than Jordan Williams and Darian Weeks are able to, because Gary uses a ton of movement. This guy's like a male Macy Barber in the cage because he's just circling and circling all day. And then every now and then he sets his feet and he throws some strikes. But if he can fight a fighter who knows how to cut off the cage and, throw some body kicks, limit the mobility with the leg kicks, I think they could have a lot of success. And I think that Gabe Green is going to be a real test. Haven't been impressed at all with Gary so far, but if he gets past Green, I think that I'll be starting to believe in the guy a bit. And Gabe Green is just a guy who comes on late in fights, good cardio fighter. He's also really durable. Remember that guys took a huge beating from Daniel Rodriguez and kept fighting there. So I like Green. Maybe a Green live bet here. The Green late props plus 1,400 for Green round two, plus 1,800 for Green round three. Those have a ton of value. So once again, the underdog is the side to be on here. 5 for 5 so far. Ozzy, what are your thoughts?
I like this fight. It's a very interesting fight to me. I think it's appropriate little step up for Ian Gary, right? I mean, I would definitely say that. I mean, Darian Weeks is probably like Charmander, and I think Gabe Green, he's at least Charmeleon. He could be Charizard because they're like, I feel the same kind of mold of fighter, like well rounded. come forward, good cardio overall. But I mean, I think this dude Gabe Green is better than people are giving him credit for. Like a lot better. Like I'm seeing not every guys that I respect, but like people are like, oh, well, Gabe Green, he got taken down by, Johan. Johan's not even a good grappler. He's like a striker. He got taken down by multiple. Yeah, dude. But I mean, if Gabe Green's on his back, this guy's looking to come up. He's looking to come up on those single legs, and he's not, like you said, he's not looking to stay on his back. And he's got a decent submission game of his own, wrestling game of his own. Great cardio, like great cardio. And mixes it up pretty well on the feet, right? He's a southpaw as well, where you saw Ian Gary have some issues with Jordan Williams in that fight, right? He was getting hit, when Jordan Williams was blitzing in. And another thing I noticed about Ian Gary is very often, I don't know if it's only when he fights southpaws or if it's just, or I don't know if it changes, orthodox or southpaw, but he really likes circling to his right hand, his right hand side. He does it consistently. It got him in trouble multiple times against Jordan Williams. Ironically, it also got him the KO against Williams. Right, he did move off to his right and drop that nuke on Williams, but Gabe Green's a former lightweight, and I think he's a lot quicker. I think he's going to deal with the speed okay. Ian Gary is very quick. He brings up the legs quick as well with the kicks. And I think he is a okay prospect, but I don't think this guy's a great prospect at all. His grappling to me, he showed some flashes of it against Jack Grant. I thought it was okay, but he also got put in some bad positions against Jack Grant. Obviously, he won the fight very, very clearly, all the rounds. But I just like Gabe Green here. I think if he can neutralize the speed of this guy at all, throw those leg kicks that he debilitated Phil Rowe with, I think those could be big here. And if Ian Gary's just gonna be circling around, like I don't think that Gabe Green is gonna be complacent to eat a L like Darian Weeks did. So I think he could get potentially hit with a KO shot, right? Like a big punch or kick from Gary. But other than that, like I like Gabe Green. I think that he has more decision equity than people give him credit for as well. But I'm hoping this line blows out a little bit more. Like I was hoping to get maybe, Green a little closer to plus 170 here, but I really like him here for a bet. Like I said, I got him pretty high up, higher up. And I just think his skills overall translate very well, and they haven't fully translated over either, right? I think also they mentioned that he got eye surgery, right? Like his eyes weren't, great, his vision. And I just think the guy's talented. He knows how to mix it up well. And this guy's touted. Like I've heard, from the California side of things, like people saying, like, man, Gabe Green, who's coming up, right? Like a very, very solid fighter, and talented in the gym, and trains with good guys as well. And trains with a lot of tall guys, and has fought many tall guys as well, like Phil Rowe, and he got knocked out by Jalen Turner in the past, but he's fought a lot of tall guys, and I don't think that's going to be.
Leonese is tall.
Leonese is kind of tall, yeah. I don't think the height is going to be that much of an issue for him, and I think he's going to catch Ian Gary in multiple times, and I think this is going to be a very, very, very competitive fight. So give me the underdog, and I will be playing Gabriel Green.
He's just scrappy too. I mean, he got dropped versus Leonese, came back, won the same round. Close fight with Phil Rowe. Dug deep to win that round 3. I mean, I feel like this guy is he's comfortable in close fights. Also, Ian Gary gets his nose bleeds in every single fight, and this fight goes late. The judges start scoring the rounds. It's close, and never good to have a guy who's bleeding. So here we go. Next fight, also in the welterweight division. Donald Cowboy Cerrone taking on Jim Miller. Obviously, a late notice replacement fight here. Jim Miller minus 180 favorite, Cerrone plus 155. So the line was a bit wider, at the start of the fight week. Cerrone's getting some buyback here. Obviously, a very old man fight here. Ozzy, I'll let you start this one off. What are your thoughts here?
Yeah, wasn't expecting this one to get put together. I was surprised with the opening line, like you mentioned. I thought, especially with it being up at 170, like it just doesn't really make sense to me. Like, because people were, I guess, high on Cowboy, or were thinking that he would smoke Lozon, and now you're getting like a pretty fair line here. But I do like what I see from Jim Miller's boxing. Like I think I mentioned it when he fought Moda. I was like, man, like Jim Miller, very comfortable in the pocket, very comfortable countering. And he's throwing fight-ending shots. Like this guy, he's not. Like, there's never been the issue with him, similar to Joe Lozon, right? So very similar fighter, but we're getting a complete flip, more or less, right in the line, right? Wasn't Cowboy like minus 180 over Lozon, somewhere around
Yeah.
there? Um, and he's also getting it at the 170 weight class. So I can't back Jim Miller here. Um, he's up this weight class, short notice. I mean, he has probably good motivation here because Cowboy did knock his ass out in New Jersey, where I think both of us, I think we mentioned, were in attendance. That was great. That was a funny event in Atlantic City. They got to go back to Atlantic City. Like, what are they doing? Um, but yeah, I mean, Cowboy, I think he should be able to avoid some of these early strikes from Jim Miller, and Jim Miller historically just slows down so much. But him not cutting the weight could have an effect on, that gas tank of his. But I just can't lay the chalk here, on him in this fashion. I actually kind of like the over 1.5 here. It is could be very sweaty and they could like just fold over at any point. But I just feel like I keep thinking about the Alex Morono fight, about how bad Cerrone was in there when he was getting hit with flush shots. But I definitely think that he's probably the side here on the money line. Like you get plus 168 on FanDuel. I think that's pretty wild. In a fight between two old men at a preferred weight class for Cowboy. Jim Miller has no experience at 170. So I think I gotta pick Cowboy here, maybe to potentially get this win. At least he's not talking about retiring and any of that stuff. So, he wants to get more fights in. But yeah, I'm interested to watch the fight. I'll pick Cowboy, but won't I probably won't bet it.
Yeah, I'm thinking along the same lines. I mean, it doesn't seem like a situation possible of backing the favorite here in Miller. In his fights at lightweight lately, he has, tend to have 7, 8 minutes of cardio, then does kind of fall off a cliff. But as you mentioned, good point. We never know what with that extra weight, these extra 15 pounds, what'll do to his cardio. Yeah, so 8 years ago, first fight, Cerrone obviously head kicked him. Like Ozzy said, we were both in attendance. First UFC event I ever went to. Definitely a legendary moment. But a lot's changed since then, and I see Miller as the less shot fighter of the two. Miller is still having competitive fights when he fights lower level guys. He's still winning those fights. It's not like he's suffering, embarrassing losses. He's not losing to this, that guy, that Mexican guy he knocked out, Gonzalez, and he's not losing to Roosevelt Roberts. He's having close fights with Vince Peichel and Scott Holtzman, and then he's eventually losing those fights. But it's not like he's just glaringly looking awful like Cerrone did in his last fight against Alex Morono. I mean, that was at 170. That was with this extra 15 pounds, and he still was getting hurt by a guy who's just not known for finishing people. Then Cerrone did cut weight 2 times to 155 lately. That can't be good for the chin long term. And then also think about it. This fight against Lozon got announced in like February, March. All right, he starts training in April. The fight was supposed to be in May the first time. It gets postponed. Okay, he keeps training. He keeps training. This guy's probably been training for a fight for like 4 or 5 months straight, and with his body being, this old and worn down, that just can't be a good formula. I mean, when you're training for a fight, your body's going to peak at a certain point, especially after you hit that weight cut. And now Cerrone's body's been fluctuating all over the place. He's cutting weight. He's not fighting. He's getting back in the gym. I don't know. There's a lot of reasons not to like Cerrone here, but I'll talk about some good reasons to like him. And those are some props here. They have Cerrone decision at plus 500, which I think is nuts. Cerrone round two, round three props are pretty good here with at plus 900, plus 1400. And then Cerrone round three or decision at plus 370. I just feel if he can make it halfway into this fight, then he's got a really good chance at taking over in rounds 2 and 3 and possibly small possibility of getting a finish, with the more possible option being, winning a 29-28 decision here. So, I mean, Cerrone decision at 5-1 is nuts to me. So that's probably the best bet to be made on this entire fight. Um, Enough said about that one. Next fight, last fight on the prelims, I believe here. Um, yes, last fight in the prelims, lightweight division. Brad Riddell, Jalen Turner,
Ooh,
absolute fucking banger of a
banger.
fight. Jalen Turner minus 145, Brad Riddell plus 125. So just amazing fight. I'll start off by saying here, great matchmaking by the UFC. And been going back and forth in this one a lot. We have seen some steam on Turner come in over the past week or two. I think where it's gotten to now, it's gotten a bit out of hand. I think the value side is definitely going to be on Quake Riddell here. But it's another fight where I'm thinking about, man, is it best to bet him before the fight or is it best to wait for a live bet? Because Brad is kind of a slow starter. He has lost round one to Leko da Silva, Drew Dober, Rafael Fiziev. That's 3 fights in a row where he did lose round one. Um, and he does build his way back into the fight. He's not he makes reads. He has good cardio. He makes reads as the fight goes, and he takes fights over late. That's exactly what he did versus Dober and Silva. Not so much versus Fiziev. Um, but Turner is a guy who has been, just demolishing guys lately. His past 4 fights have been just beatdowns, right? He's been beating these guys from pillar to post and finishing them. Now that is impressive, but the same thing I was talking about with Muniz earlier. When does that run stop? When does he run into a guy who won't go away? And then what does it look like after that? Because he's been finishing guys with ease, what does his cardio look like in the second half of the fight? The only time we've seen Turner go to the decision in the UFC, he did lose a 30-27 decision to Matt Frevola. So, uh,
Legend Matt Frevola,
yeah,
the legendary Matt Frevola.
high level fighter Matt Frevola. And that just makes me think that if Brad can, survive the first few minutes here, he's got a really good chance of taking this fight over in the second and third round. It's not like Jalen Turner is some defensive genius either. I mean, the guy is a high action striker. He's a great puncher. He's a great, high level knees. I mean, I'm sure Ozzy and I are both impressed by what the guy's been doing lately, but we're talking about Brad fucking Riddell here, who we've got a lot of love for on this podcast. We both, went to war with, in the past 2 fights. He's been like plus 130 for like 3 fights in a row, by the way. Plus 130 versus Dober, Fiziev. Now here he is again. And I just think that I like Riddell's chances if this fight gets out of the first round. I think he's going to get hit with some shots early. He's probably going to go up to a bigger underdog. But I mean, I still think you got to take a small position before the fight. Like Drew Dober, same situation. He lost round one. He got dropped in round one. But before the fight at plus 130, he was still a good bet. He was still the right side to be on. So I'd say take some action, Riddell, and then be waiting with that finger on the trigger with the live bets here midway through round one, towards the end of round one, to get in on this live line.
Yeah, another fight that I absolutely love, like you said, Jalen Turner has um, definitely been impressing. I mean, the guy's very, like you said, very, very tactical in there. I like, some of the stuff that he goes for. Like he has like some just, really, really shrewd, moments like, that wrist grab on Jamie Malarkey where he's kind of like, oh, don't get away from me. And then he like rips a punch to the body with the other hand. And the whip and the leverage that this guy gets specifically for me on that right hook. You see when he finishes Malarkey with it, like he was hitting Malarkey, and Malarkey didn't know what was like. It looked like Malarkey was like shocked with how hard Turner was hitting him, but he was hitting him very very flush, like very very flush. And I just love for the most part Brad's defense. Like he's really really good with the hand fighting. I think that he respected Fiziev maybe a little too much, but even in that fight, I mean, I thought his defense looked pretty sharp. The strike count was very very close. I think if yeah, I mean the head strikes they were kind of close. And he's just such a experienced kickboxer. In this fight, and his wrestling is also very very underrated in my opinion. He's great at scooping up those double legs. When he's pressed someone against the fence, and against Dober, you just saw multiple occasions of that wrestling looking, really really good. Like I thought. And he's definitely been working his ground game still a lot and improving on that wrestling. And he knows how to fight these taller guys. This guy literally has coincidentally a YouTube video explaining how to beat taller fighters. The guy also trains with Israel Adesanya. He's fought a lot of these taller guys, and he's got a dynamite overhand, right and left. Right, he landed it multiple times on Dober, and Jalen Turner has been turned off. Uh, a few times, with overhands. Even Jamie Malarkey catches him with a left hook, I think in round one, early on in round one, where it kind of stumbles Jalen Turner. So I'm interested to see Jalen Turner's approach here, how aggressive he's going to be early on, if he's going to push the same kind of pace, because he was all over Malarkey. Like he was throwing every, strike that he had in the toolkit at Malarkey. But I feel that Brad Riddell, man, is a different kind of fighter overall than Jamie Malarkey in terms of how cerebral he is in there and the game plan that he comes out with. And I think City Kickboxing also very cerebral, very smart camp. And I think they've got a good game plan coming in with Brad Riddell here. Turner could find a kill switch. He could land, he's very diverse. He's got front kicks, body kicks, elbows, knees, straight punches. He mixes it up really well. He throws offbeat strikes as well. But at that chin, and him cutting all this weight down to 155, I think this might be the guy to put him down and have some big moments. So I'm gonna pick Brad Riddell here. I'm gonna side with him. I think he can mix it up, throw these leg kicks, mix in takedowns, and take Jalen Turner into deeper water where he's this guy's a finisher, right? He doesn't go to, like you said, he doesn't go to decision very often. Should be a fantastic fight. Two great strikers, but I think people are seeing the physique and reach of Jalen Turner and assuming Brad Riddell is not going to be able to touch that chin, and I just don't think that's going to be the case. But should be a great fight for as long as it lasts. I know people like the under and the fight doesn't go the distance, but I mean, I think Brad Riddell's got a chin on him. So let's see. I mean, let's see. Jalen Turner does have some one hitter, kind of leverage that he puts on some of these strikes. But I think Brad Riddell's gonna take home the win here.
You think Turner might have any success wrestling of his own right?
I haven't have has he really gotten many takedown? Like he's got I know he took down Medic. I remember that one.
Yeah.
But I don't really
I
think
think
he's taken down
Weaver he got down. I mean, yeah, who cares?
was it like a trip though? Like a trip, I think it was
Yeah, I
like in the
think it
clinch
was
or
like a
something.
body lock.
Yeah, I don't think he's taken down Brad Riddell, but I mean, it could happen. Just like
I
when you
doubt
have
it.
such the bigger guy, I think it could happen. But I think Riddell from on bottom, he's not accepting the position, and he could use that opportunity to get wrestling going of his own.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little disagreement about the Riddell wrestling. I mean, I'm worried about the guillotine. If he tries to wrestle here, Turner does have a nasty guillotine.
You don't like Riddell's wrestling?
I
You
don't.
don't
I
like
mean, I saw him take down Dober, but then I also saw Dober, be able to scramble his way to the feet. It might be good just to make the tempo of the striking a bit, but I don't see it being like a smart idea for Riddell to do too much. I'm looking at the height, bro. Holy shit! It's saying Turner is 8 inches taller, 6 inches
yeah,
longer.
Brad's a short guy.
Yeah, no, that's a huge confidence increase for the 5'7" guys out there.
But I mean, they just game planned for this dude, and then they were like, "Fuck it, yeah, let's get Brad in there to avenge this last L." So I don't. I mean, maybe they see something and they think Brad could exploit. But I like Brad Riddell here. I mean, I'm a Brad Riddell stan. So I mean, maybe don't listen to me because I kind of like always like backing Brad Riddell, but it's been hella profitable, like you said. So I'm gonna stay on the train.
Maybe wait to bet Riddell to the weigh-ins. People are gonna see that 8 inch height difference and they're gonna bet
Also
Turner.
true.
So
Also true.
maybe pass that up. All right, pay-per-view main card time. We dove into those prelims, but bro, they're good fights. Ozzy and I, we'll talk about some bullshit fights for a minute or two each. When they're good fights, we're gonna dive in and give you all the angles. So, uh, you know, main card time. 5 more really good fights. Pedro Munoz taking on Sean O'Malley in the first fight on the main card. O'Malley minus 290, Munoz plus 245. I think it's your turn to start this one off, Ozzy. What are you thinking
It
about
is.
this bantamweight fight?
Oof, I fucking love it. I mean, I love Pedro Munoz, and it's been hurting me to see him slip up and the drop in success as he gets older. But I mean, this guy's most of his fights, dude, are against former champions of the weight class. Like, let's put it into context overall. I thought it was I mean, Dominic Cruz, man, he just got in his bag in that last fight so much. Like, I was so impressed by the fact that I mean, looking forward so much to Dominic Cruz getting that hometown fight against Cheeto Vera. That's gonna be a great fight. But Yeah, I mean, this is an intriguing fight because I mean, it's great matchmaking because O'Malley, obviously, people know the leg kicks, right, are an issue, and Pedro Munoz has some of the best leg kicks in the game. And then we know that obviously, O'Malley's great on the outside, very very good footwork, extremely quick, grabs angles, really well, uses his front kicks, his teeps. He'll switch southpaw to orthodox. And I think people are looking at Pedro and maybe thinking that he's kind of like Thomas Almeida. And let me tell you, please don't think that. I mean, Almeida, we didn't know. I guess some people knew that he was shot when O'Malley got him. But I mean, Pedro, I just think he just is able to be so steady in there that I'm not sure if O'Malley's gonna really blow him out the water as people expect. O'Malley does land flush. That's one credit I'll give him, and he's got pretty good conditioning, and he could keep up his pace and what he does for a long time. But I just love Pedro Munoz's game overall. He's just such a finish orientated fighter, but he's at a huge reach disadvantage here. But I think that is just gonna maybe just play into his hands a little bit more in the aspect of he's definitely looking to kick this motherfucker's leg clean off. Is what I'm thinking. I'm waiting like there was a little pop down in price. I'm seeing people very confident in Sean O'Malley, and yeah, I could see it with because of the footwork, but I kind of gotta bet Pedro Munoz here at such a big price here. Maybe not big, just like a little stab, and then I'm gonna follow up with is Munoz by submission. The majority of his wins, right? He hasn't gotten a submission in a long time, but he's got more submission wins than anything else, and he's got a killer guillotine. And watch for the heel hook. When was the last time that I called heel hook, Martian? What happened?
Sabatini, Emmers.
Sabatini Emmers. Watch for the heel hook here. Inside or outside? Pass it to you.
Yeah, well, some people think that Emmers would win a rematch there, so I don't know about that one. Um, So yeah, I mean, we both love Munoz. We both backed him against Aldo. Obviously, that looked stupid in retrospect. But as Ozzy mentioned already, we got to look at these past the past six opponents for these guys. I sent a tweet about this earlier, and I'll say it here once again. So we're talking Pedro's last six fights. How many UFC champions has he fought? Five. And we're talking Aljamain was an interim champ, wasn't he? Right? He's a multi. He's an inter.
I mean, he's an undisputed now.
Yeah, now but he's technically almost like a two-time champ, and then Edgar two-time champ, Aldo two-time champ, Cruz two-time champ, Cody Garbrandt not so much, but and then he fought Jimmy Rivera, being the only non-champion who we all know is an extremely quality fighter as well. Um, then you go over to O'Malley, and I sent a tweet about this. Everybody who's listening to the podcast probably already knows. They follow him. They follow me. But his six wins are aging just so poorly in the UFC. So first of all, he beat Terrion Ware, who went on to lose two more fights and get cut. Then he beat Andre Sukumdad, who won one fight, lost two fights, got cut. Quinones lost a fight, got cut. Wineland lost two fights, retired. Moutinho lost a fight, got cut. And then Paiva, who just lost last weekend. So, I mean, this guy's six wins that he has. Only one of those opponents has a UFC win after they fought him. So they're clearly giving him low tier fighters, right? The best opponents they've given him is holding on Paiva. And the difference between Paiva and Munoz is substantial. It's a substantial jump between those two, and they're pricing O'Malley like they always do as a minus 300 favorite. I mean, they're disrespecting Munoz. The market is disrespecting them. But the thing is, guys, don't bet Pedro Munoz yet. Hold off. The same shit I was just saying. Sean O'Malley, fan favorite. Every fucking sports book in the country of America is going to be running some Sean O'Malley odds boost, or some sort of bullshit going on promo with Sean O'Malley. Just hold off, okay? The same thing with the weigh-ins. There's going to be a big height and reach advantage for O'Malley. Just wait. But getting down to the matchup, I mean, Munoz obviously going to be trying to chop the legs. O'Malley has a clear susceptibility to leg kicks. Broke his leg against Sukumtat, hurt his leg against Marlon Vera, and then, bro, even in the Moutinho fight, I swear some of the leg kicks that Moutinho were landing, like I swear they were hurting O'Malley like more than they should have. I just think this guy has fragile legs, and there might not be anything to do to replace that. Um, and Munoz is in a historically extremely hard guy to grapple. Munoz isn't, or Malley's not grappling him. He's been an extremely durable guy. He's never been finished in 25 pro fights. And O'Malley's going to be landing straight shots here, but Munoz is going to be slipping his head off the center line a little bit. He's going to be bobbing and weaving. He's going to be smashing those leg kicks, and he's going to be coming back with hard punches. Guys, don't forget, Munoz just dropped Dominic Cruz in the first round. Dropped him, wobbled him kind of twice there. This dude still has power in his hands. So man, I just think this market is doing what they always do. They're overvaluing O'Malley, and I wouldn't say Munoz is typically disrespected historically, but just any fighter against O'Malley, the line I think is going to be off. Um, I did kind of show some support to Paiva as well, which backfired. It looks like a pretty stupid read there, but Munoz is just cut from a different cloth. This dude has lost a lot of fights lately, but to the elite level competition, and this is just a whole different matchup from. So give me Munoz at this big plus money. Um,
I say ride the ATT wave. They're doing something right down there. There's good energy over there. Johnny Eblin, won that belt. Gamrot, I think they've been sweeping a lot of these nights. And Pedro Munoz is one of the not OGs, but one of the most respected guys in that gym. And I think he feels disrespected. I know that for a fact. He feels. So I mean, he's coming from. This is gonna be a good fight. Really good fight. I'm really looking forward to it. And if O'Malley could get this knockout, man, that's a really good win. Like a very, very good win.
yeah.
So
I'll
I'm
put I'll
interested in
go ahead and
watching
say
that.
it on record. If O'Malley beats Munoz, I'll start really putting some stock into the guy, because this is by a substantial margin his toughest test to date. Well, outside of Marlon Vera, I think it's right on the same tier as Marlon Vera, honestly.
But the
Um,
fact that we get the same price on Munoz as Paiva is pretty funny.
Insane. And when we learned not a single fucking new thing about O'Malley in that fight. He just threw straight punches, connected, and finished him like he always does. I mean, nothing new about O'Malley.
And one thing I do like about Pedro is when he throws his overhand, he moves his head off the center, right? As Cody Garbrandt. So if O'Malley's looking to exchange like he was doing a few times at Paiva, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised at a club and sub. That's why I like or like a big punch landed for Pedro. So I'm very intrigued to watch the fight. I know O'Malley's quick. He's got good kickboxing, and fast. But give me Pedro for sure as well.
Next fight is welterweight division. Brian Barberena taking on Robbie Lawler. Robbie Lawler's the favorite, minus 120. Barberena plus 100. So we'll definitely talk about this one the least of any main card fight. Definitely, the least intriguing of all the main card fights. It's an old guy fight. It'll be exciting. They're gonna box with one another. I don't think either guy is very likely to level change here. Lawler looked good against Nick Diaz, in their fight. Obviously, Nick Diaz looked like a fat old, slob in that fight. But Lawler took it to him. I mean, he showed no respect for the power. He marched him down. He looked like he had great cardio, threw 300, 400 strikes, and looked fresh. Barberena was in that war with Matt Brown. Dug deep and won those later rounds. Um, and I think it's hard to tell who's more shot, right? But I do know at their career best, Lawler was a multiple time UFC champion. And at Barberena's career best, he was like the 15th ranked welterweight for like a week or something like that. So, I mean, you got to put some stock into that right off the bat. And I mean, to me, that's enough to have Lawler as, a slight favorite based on that alone. And then considering that, Lawler, people were writing him off before the Diaz fight because he was losing to better fighters, to fresher fighters. But when you throw him against a guy who's on the same level like Nick Diaz, Lawler just destroyed him in that fight. So I think Lawler is still the better boxer of the two. I like the way he was slipping off the center, ripping to the body, throwing in combination. Barberena does have a lot better ability to cover distance. And the thing with Nick Diaz is, bro, his feet are so planted, right? His legs were so heavy in that fight, and he had no mobility on his upper body, and he could barely fully extend his arms. At least Barberena does, kind of, throw long punches, and he does cover some distance with his strikes. He still does know how to catch people on the end of his punches, and he knows how to pour it on to win rounds at good times. I like Barberena. I like both of these guys, but I'll be siding with the veteran and the career better fighter in Robbie Lawler at this point. I think that minus 120 is a good enough price to bet him, and even though this should be a high paced striking fight, I really see it going over. I see it going the full distance, going the full 15 minutes. I just don't think either guy has enough power to finish each other, and neither of their chins are like that particularly bad either. So I'll take a Lawler decision here.
Yeah, I don't got much in this fight. I mean, the Robbie Lawler versus Nick Diaz fight was just a peculiar one to me overall. Just I don't know, like just how the whole fight played out. And I wasn't expecting to see Robbie back. I don't know, maybe like for another year. I'm not sure, but interesting fight to put him against here. I mean, Barb though, I do think Barb has been throwing some good shots out there. I know, people. Obviously, the last fight was a war. It got a little sloppy at sometimes, but I mean, I think he's got a little bit more pop in the hands than people give him credit for. Robbie, his defense is okay, but he's not very mobile. Right, he doesn't move all that much or all that well anymore. And I just think that they're probably gonna bang pretty hard, and I can see Barb landing on him. But why is he under such plus money? Do you have an opinion on this not going to the scorecards here? Like, do,
Yeah, I just said. Yeah, I just said. I think
sorry,
it definitely will.
you think it definitely will? Yeah. So I mean, I'm not sure if I feel that as much. But I don't got a good read on the fight, so don't listen to me all that much. Like I don't really think that either side is value. Like I think, to think that Robbie is the side here, you kind of have to think that like, I mean, him being down at 170, I think could maybe take away a little bit from, how well he was doing against Nick. And I mean, Barberena is just a weird guy. Like he's another unorthodox, person. But a lot of the things are in the faults that have been hitting him, have are not gonna be, I think, exploited by Robbie in terms of like grappling, right? Brown mixed in the takedowns a lot. Darian Weeks mixed in the takedowns a lot. Anthony Ivy, Jason Witt, all these guys mix in the takedowns a lot. And I think if Barb just gets a striking fight, I think, I know people love Robbie Lawler, but I don't know if if he should be that much of or he's not that much of a favorite, but I don't know. I don't know what I'm saying, but I feel like Barberena is getting a little underrated overall, just with sentiment, not so much as pricing. But if I could get some plus money on it, maybe I'll get involved. But for me, I'm probably gonna take a break from the main card on this one, like in terms of betting. Just watch it, hope someone gets knocked out, and get ready for the top three billing.
Let's do that right now. Top three fights on the card. Last non-title fight on the card. Middleweight division. Sean Strickland taking on Alex Pereira. Pick'em fight minus 110 on both sides. Incredible matchmaking. Incredible fight. A fight that I feel like no one can be super confident in either side. It's just like this is such a perfect fight for like what the fuck is about to happen here. Just so many outcomes on the table. Just a brilliant fight. And your
Yeah,
turn to
dude.
start this one off, Ozzy.
Yeah, dude. So, I'll start off. I don't know what's gonna happen in this fight, but I've been flip flopping all week, so I could definitely see both sides, both angles. Now, Sean has the much more MMA experience, is on a great win streak, is the more well-rounded fighter. And he's also shown great overall defense, which is something that I can't say I've seen in MMA. Kickboxing fans don't come at me. In terms of striking defense, right? If you look at that Bruno Silva fight, a lot of Alex Pereira's defense is just retreating straight back. Um, excuse me, hand fighting a lot, right? But he's not really slipping punches all that well. I don't feel he's controlling range all that much either when the other guy's attacking him. He gives up distance, But also it was in a smaller cage, so maybe he was just like, all right, like, if I or actually doesn't even make sense that it was in a smaller cage because it's dumb to just be giving up range. But, and then some of the strikes that he throws, like he didn't really mix in. He didn't throw any leg kicks for the most part. He threw a few at Silva, but I don't think that's gonna be a weapon for him here all that much. But like some of the strikes, like yeah, I know this guy's a high level kickboxer, but I just don't actually think that the striking is translating that well. Like definitely amazing power, and he's got a vicious intent on a lot of them. But I just don't feel he was controlling the striking tempo in that fight that well until the third round. And Strickland, I mean, like I said, he's great with the hand fighting, great with the parrying. His if you look at his striking defense, it's 66%. And when you see it, right, it's the same thing, right? You saw Jack Hermanson have very, very hard time hitting him. Same thing with Uriah Hall. He's got a great jab as well. But the difference in power is kind of maybe like the biggest issue, as well as not knowing if Strickland's going to wrestle him. Because if he does take him down, from what I've seen from Pereira on the ground, yeah, he's been getting up, but in the midst of that, he gives up some positioning in terms of like, where your knees are, where your legs are in relation to the top guy. That for if a guy is experienced and very good on the ground, like Sean Strickland is, originally came into MMA as a grappler. I think he was like a purple belt maybe when he first busted into MMA when he was like 19 or 20. Definitely black belt level now, and I think he's gonna get at least 1 or 2 takedowns here. Now, I could definitely see Strickland having great success early on, maybe coming out, a little bit hotter because I did think Pereira came out a little slow against against Bruno Silva, and he definitely came out slow against Michailidis. So I could see Strickland using that jab, maybe throwing a few leg kicks out there, and then finding a takedown, having some success, but then getting away from it, and then being looking up at the lights soon thereafter. Alex for sure is gonna at some points be able to uncork some big shots, some big bombs, and Strickland's gonna have to be able to either mitigate it by going into the clinch, which Pereira has shown some good clinch work. He's shown some good knees in there at times, but against Bruno Silva, another thing, he was on the fence, back against the fence for extended periods. And while Strickland, he's not the most physical guy, right? Obviously, he's a former welterweight. I think he's very savvy in the clinch, and he's a very savvy fighter overall. So I've been flip flopping, but I think I have to stay with the Strickland side. I am aware that the KO for Pereira is super super live, because Strickland does sometimes lean away from some of these shots, but these guys have similar reaches overall. Or I think Pereira's got 3 inches on him, I guess, so he's a bit bigger. Um, I'm not gonna bet the fight. I was thinking that I was gonna bet Strickland, but I'm gonna just avoid it. Like I just think that the bonk, is definitely live, especially if Strickland fights like an idiot, like you think like he might. But I think he should be able to get this win. Like I think that his ground game is just vastly, vastly, vastly superior to Alex Pereira. And I think that he is going to fight smart enough to get this win, but it's not a confident pick.
Yeah, I mean, and it can't be confident pick. I'll echo what I said earlier. You can't be confident in either side in this fight. I haven't talked to anybody all week that is, and I really think that you're mistaken if you are confident in one side. And, it seems like obviously like a striker versus grappler matchup. It is a lot more complicated than that. It's not as simple as all Strickland needs to do is get one takedown. It's not as simple as all Pereira needs to do is keep it standing. It's going to be, competitive on the feet. Pereira is no defensive genius, like Ozzy was saying. This guy has never been known for being an extremely great defensive striker. I mean, even throughout his kickboxing career, you see him kind of leaning away from punches, and he has some tendencies that are still there from that kickboxing career, which is, very evident because he's only fought in MMA for what, like 23, 24 minutes, something like that in the past 5, 7 years. But in Pereira's last fight, that five or the 3 round decision against Silva, you know, I was very impressed from what I saw from Pereira in that fight. I mean, the dude finished his LFA opponent in round one, Michailidis, in 6 minutes, and We had really no idea what this guy's cardio was going to look like. And Silva took him in a competitive fight. It was a close fight. It was back and forth. Silva had some takedowns. The fight involved grappling. And in round three, Pereira's takedown defense was looking better than ever. He was sprawling. He was landing shots. He was pouring it on. He was hurting Silva. I mean, in a tough competitive fight, he showed incredible cardio in round three, in my opinion, which was a great sign for him going into this fight. Um, Now, talking about the grappling in this fight, obviously, I think that's the biggest factor in the entire fight. Is will Sean Strickland grapple, and if he does grapple, how much success will he have? The first thing I think we should start off with saying is that Strickland's game plan, a game plan here is not to grapple. I mean, you're mistaken if you think that. He said it in interviews. Does Sean Strickland really strike you as a guy who's making shit up and saying stuff for interviews? Because he really doesn't strike that as to me. He strikes me as a guy who's just being real when he's on the mic. I mean, he says some incredible shit on the mic. There's no way this guy isn't just completely speaking his mind. And what he said in his interview today is that I'm gonna try to stand and bang with this guy. I want to see what his striking's all about. I don't think his striking's that good. And yeah, if he hurts me, then obviously I'll look to that wrestle. But I don't want to. He doesn't really want to wrestle. He wants to strike. So he's going to come in to strike early on. He's going to be exchanging. I think they will have some competitive exchanges, but eventually Pereira is going to land, that hard left hook, that hard right hand, and it's going to, force Strickland to make that decision to grapple. Now, if he gets these or if he commits to these takedowns, I think he'll get them. I think he will because Pereira doesn't have a great first line of takedown defense, but Pereira does seem to have a really good understanding of when to explode on the ground to get back up to his feet. He collects himself, he gets taken down, he makes sure he's safe, and then he finds his way back up to the feet. And this guy is so big and athletic for the 185-pound weight class that it exhausts opponents trying to take him down and to outgrapple him. And for a guy whose grappling is not his A game, I don't trust the cardio and the pace of Strickland to be able to keep up a grappling onslaught to win, 2 rounds or to win by finish. I think he is gonna have to, translate his first takedown or 2 into a finish if he wants to win the fight with his grappling, because if not, I think that grappling pace could, wear on him a bit and tax him out in these later rounds. As you talked about it before, man, Strickland is a well above average grappler. I mean, the guy knows how to wrestle, he knows how to get on top and consolidate position, and he's a solid top position grappler. So he's capable of using it. I just don't think he's reliable enough to wrestle here, as this pick'em price. I mean, if I was betting him as a pick'em, I would be pretty fucking sure that Strickland is going to wrestle here, and we cannot rely on that. So that leads me to pick Pereira, man. It's a bold pick. It's a very bold pick. We're talking about 4 times the MMA experience for Strickland or something like that, maybe even more than that. Yeah, more than that. More than 4 times the experience in the UFC, just hours longer in the cage for Strickland. But man, Pereira is a special fighter. And I think, the UFC is setting up this matchup for a reason. Strickland knows why they're setting it up. They're trying to do Pereira versus Adesanya. They're putting us on the same card. And I think that they, made the right decision by matching him up with Strickland here. And I think it's a very winnable fight. I think Pereira will win the fight. And I'm honestly not even sure it happens by knockout. I think we could be seeing a decision here that Pereira wins, maybe 29-28. Um, I like Strickland as a fighter. I think his personality is funny. I think the shit he says on the mic is funny, but it would also be hilarious to see the guy, face planted here with some sort of strike. And, just an incredible fight. Like I'll say it again. Enough about that one, though.
I kind of
Ozzy, any
think there's
more
gonna be
thoughts or
just
you want to
one,
move on
yeah,
to the
just
title?
one last thing. I think there's gonna be a finish in this fight. So I'm looking at that under 2.5. One guy's made a mahogany, one guy's Sean Strickland and insane. I just think there's gonna be some chaos in this fight. Like even if Strickland is grappling him, like he's not gonna be the guy that's holding on to him, getting booed. Like I mean, maybe because he wants the money. I mean, I've been duped before, right? People are like, "Oh, Strickland, he says he's a fucking wants to murder people, and then he just goes out there to jab guys." But I don't think that Pereira is gonna let himself get jabbed, and I don't think Sean Strickland's going down without a fight. So I kind of like it to go under.
All right, then that brings us to our first title fight, the trilogy. Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway. Volkanovski is the favorite here, minus 205. Max Holloway plus 175. That is right. You heard it here right. Max Holloway with a plus 175 next to his name. The last time we saw this was the last time these two guys fought. Max Holloway closed at plus 170. You ask anybody in the world who knows about fighting, who knows about betting, Max Holloway looked a whole lot better than plus 170 in that fight. Just a coin flip fight, the epitome of a coin flip fight. Um, and Max Holloway showed great adjustments in that fight from the first fight. Obviously, the first fight was a pretty clear and wide Volkanovski decision. One judge even had it 5-0. The first 3 rounds were really easy Volkanovski. The second 2 rounds got closer. The rematch, the first 2 rounds were clearly Holloway, and then the third and fourth round were extremely close rounds. I mean, I saw a lot of people give round 3 to Max, seen people give round 4 to Max, but all 3 judges thought Volkanovski won the third and the fourth round, which I thought was just some fortunate judging for Volkanovski there. That's really what the fight came down to. It was a split decision. One round on one judge's card could have flipped that shit. And, they're putting Max Holloway at plus 175 again. I don't get it, guys. Has Max Holloway shown that he's slowing down since then? Because I've seen him have 2 5-round, spectacular performances against Calvin Kattar and Yair Rodriguez. It's not like he's, losing fights or looking worse since then. He looks, virtually the same, if not better. Volkanovski continues to improve. He has 2 5-round wins. One only went 4 rounds, but 2 championship, fight wins over Ortega, over Volkanovski, or over Korean Zombie. Both of those fights were kind of onslaughts, honestly. Um, but this is just it's going to be another closely fought decision. I mean, these neither of these guys have a massive edge on one another, and I just think it's nuts that we just saw these guys fight last year. We saw them have a coin flip type of fight. We saw them go the 5 rounds. It was a split decision, and now they're saying the Volkanovski should be 67%, even though the last iteration of the fight we saw, there's no way Volkanovski looks 67%. Now, I would understand Volkanovski being a slight favorite here, maybe minus 150, considering he did win the first 2 fights. And what I'll say about Volkanovski is he does have a little bit more adaptability about him. We saw him dig really deep in that second fight after dropping the first 2 rounds. He changed up his approach a bit. He mixed in some clinching, some grappling. It wasn't really that effective. It's not like he did a whole lot of work with those positions, but it somehow, swayed the fight back in his direction. And, the leg kicks were a huge factor for Volkanovski in the first fight. Max Holloway did a great job negating those leg kicks in the second fight, which immediately made the fight a lot closer. And then in the second fight, I saw Max landing the better headshots throughout the fight. I mean, obviously, the head kick that dropped him in round 1, the uppercut that landed him in round 2. I just saw Holloway, with his frame, with his length, he was able to reach the head with his shots a lot more than Volkanovski was. When Volkanovski didn't have that leg kick, he really struggled to get off a lot of meaningful offense. He landed a lot of jabs, but I didn't see many, backhands, the right hands for Volkanovski, power punches. I didn't see many landing in that second fight. I thought the harder shots were landed by Max. And then, he Max lost the decision there. He obviously realized that his output, his pace in the later round cost him that decision. And what did he do against Calvin Kattar? He came out throwing and landing the most strikes ever landed in a UFC fight. And he, in his past 2 fights, has just shown a much higher consistent offense through a 5-round fight. And he just knows he needs to keep up that pace and that volume a little bit more in these later rounds. And he has a great chance at stealing this decision and, winning this trilogy fight. So, Max Holloway at plus 175 is so much disrespect. I mean, we're talking about one of the greatest fighters ever, top 5, top 10 greatest fighters ever, and they have him as, a 38% underdog or something here, man. So we need to stop the disrespect on the blessed one. And I'll take Max Holloway to pull off the upset and to win a decision here.
Yeah, so I love Max Holloway. I used to love Volkanovski, but he's been kind of getting on my nerves. I think it might be his fans specifically getting on my nerves. But I mean, as you said, that second fight obviously razor close. And I thought that Max, he was just clowning a bit too much. I got overconfident with with like how big the shift was from like the first fight to how the first 2 rounds played out with him dropping Volkanovski on 2 occasions. And in that third round, he just did not fight well overall. He let his foot off the gas. I think officially strike count, they only credited him with 2 landed strikes to the head. And I mean, he lands like some really good shots in that fourth round. Like, I definitely think there's an argument for max 1, 2, and 4. And like you said, they're pricing this, pretty wide. Volk, I have liked some of the stuff that he's done. He's shown a really good jab. He's been mixing in his left hook a lot, but I mean, he's been feeling himself quite a bit from, knocking out a grandpa in Korean Zombie. And I think the fact that like the takedowns and some of the stuff like that maybe they gave him a bit credit for in that second fight maybe is not going to be the case as much here. And I actually think Max has, I think the sentiment is that Volkanovski has improved more so than Max, but I think it's just a mentality thing more so. And I just think that Max is maybe a little bit more explosive as well in those 2 fights. I thought against Yair and Cater, I just like the offense that he was putting out there. How consistently he was doing it, and how ready he was to counter, especially Calvin Cater. And I think there's gonna be opportunities here, for that. I think that Volkanovski, like I said, is coming in. I think is gonna be flipped over here, and Volkanovski's gonna be the overconfident one. I think Volkanovski's gonna look to, exchange a little bit more, and land that right hand, which realistically he didn't land many right hands against Max at all. In that second fight. And I just think that Max has the better striking here. He's got the better boxing. Volk's won those 2 fights off of, those leg kicks. And I think those were, significantly neutralized, especially the outside leg kick. Volk is very, very good with his inside leg kick, and I just don't think that's something that you could really take away. But I think if Max just focuses a little bit on maybe switching up to the southpaw a little bit more, and just being very mindful of that jab from Volkanovski, like you got to be adamant in parrying it, especially with the reach advantage and countering off that jab, quickly and with a lot of intent, and also invest in that body, man. Throw those body strikes with the hands. But I mean, I love Holloway in this fight, man. This is a burn the boats, come out strong, keep the foot on the gas pedal, and really take it to this guy, because I think that, the margins for Volkanovski winning overall are just a little slim, a little narrow. And I think the best that I could give him is, maybe lining him maybe minus 150 around that range. So I like the Holloway side here on the money line. I think that he's going to be able to control. I'm not going to say control this fight, because Volkanovski's a master tactician in the cage, but I just think that he's gonna give Max. He's gonna be out of his element a little bit. I think he's gonna give Max more the fight that he wants, and as well be accepting as well of the fight that Max is gonna bring. Because Volkanovski, I think he's still got the chip on his shoulder, and he really wants to prove a point. And I think this is gonna end poorly for him. I think we potentially see a fourth fight, but I'm really hoping that Max could put a stamp on this and finish Volkanovski. But I'm just super high on Max, man. I think that it's still his time. I think people are thinking that he's a little too, battle worn, and I think that's what people are seeing in this fight, and thinking that Max is taking a lot of damage even in those 2 past wins. But I wouldn't even be surprised at seeing him use some of his ground game here. Potentially, I thought his ground game definitely has leveled up. Looked really good against Yair Rodriguez, and yeah, I'm taking Max here. I'm probably doing a multi-unit bet on him, but very intrigued to see how it plays out. And yeah, I'm gonna be watching this one with a very close eyes as well on the live lines, because I think the first fight I got a really good live price on Volk, but I think that this they're gonna bang it out here, and I like Holloway in the pocket much more.
Yeah, one thing is I don't think a trilogy in the UFC, all 3 fights have gone to the decision. I think there's always been one finish in there. Maybe this is the first time we see it go the full 15 rounds. I think it'll go full 5. I mean, both guys are just so fucking durable. Max Holloway never been knocked down one time in his career. I mean, if anybody's getting hurt here, it's probably going to be Volkanovski, and I just feel like once the fight starts, man, how can you really feel bad about having your money on Max Holloway at plus money? I mean, it's just it's a
It's one of the best feelings in MMA, I think, having a guy like that, at plus money.
yeah, I really love and respect Volkanovski as well. But man, just rewatching the fight earlier today, the rematch, man, how could he be 67% here when we just saw a 50-50 iteration of the fight? So maybe we're underrating. Maybe Volkanovski comes in with some changes of his own this fight. But I mean, even the grappling in the last fight, I feel like he kind of caught Max off guard a bit. Maybe let's hope Max has been training his grappling and his takedown defense a little bit more, preparing for this fight. Knowing that Volkanovski might look to use that. I thought it was different
Marcelo
crap.
Marcelo Garcia has moved from New York to the same island that Max Holloway lives on, and he's been there
Yeah,
for a
and that
while.
automatically makes everybody on that island a better grappler, just by association. But it's crazy,
100%.
isn't it crazy? This is a co-main event again. This is the third time this fight has happened, and these guys are still co-main event. They're-
Yeah, I think this should be the main event,
yeah,
honestly.
yeah, moving on to the main event, have a hard time getting super excited for Israel Adesanya fights. Honestly, it's nice to see a new challenge with Cannonier here, but I'm just not super excited for this fight. Adesanya taking on Cannonier. Adesanya the champ -500, Cannonier +375. Ozzy, your turn to start this one off. Any faith whatsoever in Cannonier to maybe pull off the impossible here?
I'm more interested in this fight, and I feel that more people would be more interested in this fight if it came off the Kelvin Gastelum fight, because I thought Jared, even though some people had that fight very close, I thought Jared looked really good in that fight. I thought it was I think just the guy is interesting to me, like how he's fought, how he's approached some of his fights. Just take the Robert Whitaker one for example. This guy came out in Southpaw, which he hasn't done all that much, and he was kicking the lead leg of Whitaker while being in southpaw with his right leg, right with his lead leg, and kicking it hard. Like Rob definitely felt those kicks, and it was just something that you don't really see all that often. A guy investing in it like that, and a guy who's not a natural southpaw in Jared. But then you also saw in the next fight against Gaslam, he fights almost like the whole fight in the southpaw stance, if I remember correctly, or very extended periods. And is able to. I think he is deliberate to be able to land both his hands with power, right, and to bring that specifically that right hand, the right hook, which he dropped Kelvin with, bring it closer to his target. And against Jared, I thought, obviously he started a little slow. I think he was respecting the takedown threat of Jared. He did get dropped there, and I thought that was one where he was trying to get the round back, or trying to end the round strong, maybe is a better way to put it. And then kind of overextended and got too close, and Jared was able to land. I don't remember if it was a left hand or a right hand, but it was kind of like almost like an angled shot, like Jared was moving off to, or Derek was moving off to the side, and then he came out, man, in that second round. He put that backhand, on him, which is a very underrated strike. I'll tell you, Martian. I remember I sparred with a guy. He's probably like 6'3", 6'4", like Izzy is, and this motherfucker hit me with one of those backhands, and dude, that shit will break your jaw very easily. Not saying that that's what's happened, but anyway, and he was throwing, elbows in the clinch, like just a very dangerous guy, very strong, strikes that he throws out there. And he's gonna be the first guy who can actually match, I think, Izzy in terms of maybe not the technique, maybe not the speed of him, but the force of the leg kicks and the willingness to very much invest in those leg kicks, right? Most of the guys that Izzy has fought, like Whitaker and uh, Vittori, some of these guys, they weren't kicking with the kicker, and I kind of talk about that very often. And you saw that in the last fight we broke down, Max Holloway and Volkanovski. It definitely changed the aspect of the second fight. Even with Volk having a lot of success that he did with the kicks, Max kicking with the kicker, and investing in the leg kicks, brought him up a level and even that fight out a bit more, in terms of that. And Jared's got ferocious leg kicks. I think the main issue here is in space. Sometimes he gets a little lost in the sauce, and nobody whips up a better sauce than Izzy, obviously on the outside. But against Whitaker, man, he was getting pushed up against the fence on a few occasions. I saw Jared, wrestling a little bit. I don't really think he's gonna be getting clean takedowns here on Izzy. Izzy's been talking about potentially going for submissions, looking to submit Jared, which I mean is 16-1. It's been priced at 16, 18, 20-1 in multiple of his recent fights. And the guy doesn't have a submission on his record, obviously. So it's probably appropriate. But he has been talking about the submission. I just think that, man, like I don't know if I'm a hater against these Australian and New Zealand guys like Volkanovski and Izzy, but I mean, I watched that Whitaker fight and like, yeah, he dropped Whitaker in I think it was the first round, maybe the second round. I don't remember what it was. I think first. Um, but after that, like the guy I mean, he didn't really do that. Like, I don't know, he didn't really take control of that fight all that much. And I don't think Jared knows this is the only title shot he's ever getting, in my opinion. And I just don't think he's gonna stay on the outside and let Izzy just jab and leg kick him and skirt around like Vittori was doing and stuff like that, or like he was doing against Vittori. But like you saw, he was putting his back against the fence multiple times against Vittori, and he gave up a few positions against Whitaker. But in that Whitaker fight, he doesn't land more than 20 strikes in any of the rounds, significant strikes in any of the rounds. And I don't really think that's gonna be I don't think that's a replicatable game plan. I'm assuming he'll come in with a different kind of game plan. But I mean, I'm usually always trying to look to the dog side, but I just feel Jared maybe like here, if this keeps continuing to go up, like even if it's maybe not pre-fight, like a live bet, maybe a small one, on him because the guy's got good cardio as well, and I think he could go the full five. But I'm just concerned potentially about just Izzy finding the big strike because he's gonna connect. He's quick. He mixes in the kicks as well, very well to the head and to the body. But I think there is a little bit of value on. Oh my God! As we speak, I'm seeing the Stoliarenko line got nuked. Amazing, fantastic. Um, but yeah, I mean, I'm gonna pick Izzy. Wow, that's disappointing. But I'm gonna pick Izzy here. But I think it's gonna be a more competitive fight than a lot of people are giving credit for.
Yeah, that is fucking crazy. Pretty big action all of a sudden.
Huge move. Huge move.
The fucking syndicates just gave it out. DraftKings is the best line. Okay, so main event. So yeah, I don't have as much faith in Cannonier as Ozzy does, and to do a little MMA math to start the analysis here, right? Um, we saw Whitaker, get the best of the striking against Cannonier. As that fight went on, really started to bust him up. Hurt him with that head kick, dropped him. Apparently broke his arm from kicks in that fight. And Whitaker, was clearly the better striker than Cannonier in that fight. And then you see Whitaker against a guy like Adesanya, and it's just crazy how well Adesanya limits the exchanges and dictates where the striking takes place. And I mean, it's not the most exciting style, but I mean, I say this a lot. I mean, the way it's the risk mitigation and the risk adverse strategy. You got to admire it because he decides exactly where the strikes are taking place. He knows where everything is coming from at all angles, and it's just almost impossible to catch this guy with a big shot that he doesn't see coming. His strikes or his striking is just at that high of a level. I mean, um, he's been caught a few times. Gastelum caught him. Maybe Jan Blachowicz caught him some good punches. Maybe once in a while Whitaker got in there. But I mean, the way he was able to shut down Whitaker, it's just really impressive to me. I mean, I was rewatching that fight, and watching it live, I thought maybe Whitaker won 2 rounds. But rewatching it, man, I kind of think Whitaker only won 1 round, the last round, the fifth round. And I thought Izzy was in control up until that point. His takedown defense is getting better. And to me, I see Whitaker and Vittori as better and more reliable wrestlers than Cannonier. And neither of those guys were really able to establish meaningful control after they got their few brief takedowns. So I just don't see Cannonier getting meaningful control with his takedowns either. Um, And the leg kicks are going to be there for Israel. The jab is going to be there, and to me, I just don't think Cannonier is his striking defense is good at all. I mean, I think he's a lethal offensive striker, got power in his hands, really skilled kicker actually, but his defense is just not up to par. And Adesanya is the rare striker where he's not only a lethal offensive striker, but he also has tremendous defense. And I just feel the defense, the experience, the size for Adesanya, and the 5 round experience is going to be big for him. We did see Cannonier go 5 rounds one time against Gastelum. He did manage to lose 2 rounds to Gastelum as well. And I know Israel did technically lose 2 rounds as well to Gastelum, but I don't know, man. Gastelum is a very basic striker. I don't think it's a good sign that Cannonier lost those rounds to Gastelum in the striking. And, I just think Cannonier is drawing extremely thin here. I mean, he's going to need a knockout. I mean, there's no other way around it. Is he needs a knockout. He doesn't have the striking to win 3 out of 5 rounds. He doesn't have the grappling to win 3 out of 5 rounds or get a submission. I mean, he has to catch Israel with a punch, and I don't see it happening. So it's going to be an Israel. I'm actually contemplating this decision versus knockout because we haven't had an Israel knockout in a while. And I feel like with the damage the Cannonier, showed in round 3 versus Whitaker, this shit could get really dicey in rounds 3, 4, and 5 for Cannonier. I mean, especially if Izzy is limiting the mobility with his legs, with the leg kicks. I think, 3, 4, 5, Cannonier could be a sitting duck. I mean, I think he's going to be drawing extremely thin in these later rounds. So, man, I was initially leaning goes the distance here, but now I'm off it. I'm thinking uh, Adesanya 3, 4, 5 maybe. Those round. I think those props are 10-1, 14-1, 18-1, something like that. Yeah, 10-1 for round 3, 16 to 1 for round 2, and 22 to round 1 for round 5. I think those are the stabs to have here. Um, and that'll do it. That'll do it, Ozzy. That'll be our analysis for this one. It's time for our best bet parlay. I've been slacking a couple weeks in a row. You've been cashing. I've been slacking, losing
Three in a
tickets.
row. Three
So
in a
maybe you
row.
guys, want to just tell Ozzy's side, or maybe have some faith and and trust me one more time. Um, what is your bet going
No,
to be
no, no.
this week?
You
Or
go first.
should I start? Okay, mine is the main event to start round 4 at -165. That says that this fight ends in the first 3 rounds, something like 38, 39% of the time. I think that's too high. So I'll take starts round 4 -165. What is yours?
Yes, I had a hard time picking this. I mean, Stoliarenko, was Stenko was in consideration, but I can't do it now. I mean, I don't know, someone's listening. Someone was sawing my dissertation that I posted earlier and sent it out. I don't know what happened there. I'm gonna go with a money line because that's the kind of guy I am. And I was leaving it between two picks that they're kind of scary: Gabe Green and Brad Riddell. Scary picks. The last time I made a pick on a Jalen Turner fight was the over 1.5 against Malarkey, and he cooked that one. In the second round. But I'm gonna go against the grain here, and I'm actually gonna take the Gabe Green side.
Mm,
I don't know where you want to put it.
interesting.
I don't know where you want to put it. Should I do that one? I'm gonna go with Brad Riddell. I'm sticking with Brad Riddell. I
The
flipped it.
curve.
Just because I was thinking, I flipped it. I'm going Brad Riddell money line. Give it to me plus 125, plus 130, whatever it is. Give me that. Just because I mean, there's some other money line, but I feel like that one is the best mix of confidence, value in the number, and then the matchup. All three, those are what I look at when I'm picking, something like that, and likelihood of winning as well, right? I don't want to pick a plus two. I want to pick Uriah Hall. So yeah, I'll go with Brad Riddell uh, to win money line.
That'll come out to plus 261. Starts round 4, -165. Riddell plus 125, plus 261 parlay. And yeah, I mean, this is a card where it's a pay-per-view card. I feel like it's getting some public action. There's no NBA, NHL, or NFL on right now. And there aren't a whole lot of sports to bet on. And I feel like,
Good
as a
point.
result
Very
of
good
that, we're
point.
seeing some of these favorites get steamed. And we could have the potential to look wrong, saying that we're fading the market on a lot of these picks. But man, I feel like there's these favorites are getting steamed out of control on this card, on all cylinders. So let's hope the dogs bark. The dogs typically don't bark on these pay-per-views, but let's fucking hope we get some what is that word that Yanni the Greek always says? Some
What's regression?
regression.
Yeah, regression,
Regression.
regression.
Yeah, yeah, let's fucking go. We need some regression on this bitch. But that'll do it. Solid pay-per-view fight night or a solid pay-per-view card going down this weekend. Any closing thoughts here, Ozzy?
No, not that much, but I got some bangers, some nice ones that I think I'm dropping soon in terms of future cards. But I'm excited. All underdogs for the most part. I don't think I'm laying one cent of chalk on any of these sides. So pray for me.
Good strat. Good strat. All right. Thanks for listening, for everyone. Make sure you're subscribing on YouTube, following us on Twitter. Thank you all for listening. Hope you all win some bets this weekend, and we'll see you all before the next card next week. Peace out, everybody.